I think my screen is visible.
Yes,
Yes,
it is.
absolutely.
Okay. So today's topic in which I'm going to uh, uh, share this session, which is React.js components. And let's first get the knowledge etiquettes. First is punctuality. Respect session timings. You are requested not to join sessions after a 5 minutes threshold. Post the session start time. Second, feedback. Make sure to submit a constructive feedback for all sessions as it is very helpful for the presenter. Third is silent mode. Keep your mobile devices in silent mode. Feel free to move out of session in case you need to attend an urgent call. Avoid disturbance. Avoid unwanted chit chat during the session. Our agenda for the today's session is what is components, as we will discuss the what are the components which we use in the React.js and types of components, functional component and class component. Basically, these are the types of components. Then we will see about some properties of the properties props which we use in this components. Then another agenda is what is JSX, and then we will continue with our demos for with counter app. First, what is components? Components are a reusable piece of code which is individual. It is reusable as we can create different components by with a single piece of code. We can create a different component as header as a different component or side navbar as a different component. They serve the same purpose as JavaScript function. Component is not different from anything. It's just a JavaScript function which we write in the HTML format. And components are make the task of building UIs much easier. It becomes easier as we create different components of a single page in which the header and the navbar it's different, and the content which we show in the feed which will be different component. And if we combine all these in a single parent component, then the single page UI will be created. You can see a UI broken down into multiple individual pieces called components and work on them independently.
Abhishek, I think you have missed the slide. Please forward it.
Which slide? No,
You are on what is components and
okay. No, continuing this slide itself.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So you can see a UI broken down into multiple individual pieces called components and work on them independently and merge them all in a parent component. As I said, I will show you with a example so you will get clear. Uh, if you see this image, in this the header part is the different component, the side nav bar is a different component, and the middle section feed is a different component, which we combined in the parent component, which creates a single page UI. And it will be much easier for us to create a UI page. Types of components. There are two types of component: functional component and class component. Let's go to functional component. Functional components are a simpler JavaScript function. Uh, as those who are known with the JavaScript, they can easily find out it's just a simple JavaScript function. A function component returns HTML and behaves much same as way as a class component. Function component also returns the HTML code, and the another type of component which is class component, both that also returns the HTML code, but the function component is a simple JavaScript function. Function components can be written using much less code, are easier to understand. Uh, as in function component, it's just a simple uh, JavaScript function. We don't need to use the render method, which we use in a class component or any other import sections which we import in the uh, class component. The functional component is also known as a stateless component because they not hold or manage state. The This is the example of function component. As you see, it's just a simple function in which we write the function name app, and we return the this piece of HTML code, uh, this in the return statement, which renders in the screen of UI. Uh, Anyone having doubt till now?
No, Abhishek.
Okay. Second type of component is a class component. Class component are more complex than functional component. It requires you to extend the React. As in the class component, we use the inheritance method, in which uh, the React.component method inherits the render uh, to the class component. A class component must include the extends React.component statement. Uh, Saurabh, you can continue.
Sure, Abhishek.
Hmm.
Can you just move on the slide, please?
Uh,
Yeah, so here is the example of a class component. You can see that the React.component is a class defined by React, and for using a class component, you just have to extend this React.component class, and then you have to call a method called render, in which that will be returning the HTML. Okay, Abhishek, next slide, please. Okay, what is props in component? So props stands for properties, like these are like arguments in JavaScript, or some like you can say that how we pass attributes in HTML. Have you heard, or you have also used that attributes in HTML? Like we use for attribute, and there are so many attributes that we use in HTML tag. So like that, you can pass prop, means properties from a component to other component. Basically, a property is used to communicate between two components. Like if you have a parent component and a class component, and you are getting data somehow from the parent component to the to the child component, so what will you do in that case? So in that case, you will use the property of props. In the props, you can pass the data from the parent component to the child component, and then in the child component, you can use that data whatever way you want to use that data. We will see this in our demo. So Abhishek, can you please go to the next slide?
yeah. Yes.
Now, what is JSX? JSX is simply a extended version of JavaScript syntax. It basically stands for JavaScript XML. What it does, it is actually a combination of JavaScript plus HTML. In likewise, when you use JavaScript, you only use JavaScript, but in JSX you can use JavaScript with HTML. Means you have the power of JavaScript as well as the templating of HTML in that. And also the JSX is faster than the normal JavaScript. Why it is faster? Because it performs optimizations. When it is converting the code, the JSX, to the regular JavaScript code, it performs optimization. So that's why it makes it bit faster than a normal JavaScript code. So instead of separating those files, like you are writing HTML files in a separate HTML thing in a separate file, CSS thing in a separate file, you have to write CSS in the separate file. But for HTML and JavaScript, you don't have to write them in the separate file. You just can combine them into the JSX, and you can simply use the power of JavaScript in the with the HTML. Okay, Abhishek, next.
Mm. Yeah.
So we will see a simple overview of an counter app, how we are using use state, and how this counter app will perform. Let's see in the demo.
And till now, if anyone having some doubt, they can ask,
Yes, till now, if you have any doubt, you can ask.
or anyone who want to add something who are from the React. Yes.
No, Saurabh, Abhishek. Continue, please.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, then let's see the demo. I'm sharing my screen, Abhishek. Can you please?
Oh, okay, sure.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's just create a React app first. So I'm just moving to the desktop folder, and then I have a folder named React projects. Now here I will be creating a React app. As you have learned in the previous knowledge session that we can create a React app without installing the create React app tool globally. So I'm just using that command only. Npx create React app, and then your app name I'm making is at counter. Let's change it as my counter app. So through this command, you can use to just create your React projects without installing the Create React App tool and without just burdening your system. You can simply create the React project and it will install the Create React App tool only once when the command is running. So this is the benefit of using this command. Also, there is also another way of creating a React project. You can simply install the using npm the Create React App tool globally, and then you can simply write Create React App and then followed by your app name. So here it is creating a React app for me, and I think it's done now. Yes, it's done now. So just let's move to the folder my counter app, and just let me open it into the code editor.
And anyone who want to know more about the intro part, they can go through with a previous session, uh, which we
Yes, in
did.
which we have explained about the directory structure, that why these node modules folder are here, why these public folders are here where we keep our assets, and the
Mm.
main folder is the src folder as it contains our basic root element, that is app.js. So now let's start running our app. So you can simply type npm start for running the React app, and here it goes. The React app is live now. It run on localhost 3000. Now let's start building our app first, the counter app. Let's remove it. Let's check if it is working or not. Let me type h1 hello. This warning is coming because we haven't imported the logo. There is no need here. Let's see. This is working now. Now let's create a component. So as we have learned today that a component is just you can say that if you are making a building, and then the bricks are the components. Likewise, if you are building a single page UI, the components are like the bricks, that when you combine brick by brick you get the whole building. So let's start by creating a component. So we will make a folder here named components. You can use whatever name you want. There is no such hard fast rule. I have made it named components, and then I will create a file named counter.js.
Uh, Counters. Okay.
Okay, let me rename it. Counter.js. Now let's start by writing the first thing. You will have to import React. Rather, it is not necessary to add this line, but still we are following this. So you can write it or whatever you want, you can do it. Now let's start creating a function counter. Remember, you cannot name a function component like this. You cannot use the small case. You just have to start with the capital case letter, or else you will be fall into error. So counter, and let me add it here props. We will be receiving props in this component. So it is just the syntax is just like a JavaScript function. Now let create a special variable called state variable first. Count and set count equals to use state. See, use state is automatically imported. Now you can add the initial value here, whatever you want, or else you can make this field blank also. But now what is use state? Use state is actually a React hook. You will further learn more about React hooks in our further sessions. But let me just give you a brief about use state. Use state is a React hook, and it returns you two things: a special variable that holds the state, and a function that is actually used to increment, or that is actually used to update that variable, because you cannot directly update that count variable, so you need a function. So use state gives us a array of two things, that is a special variable called state variable and a state updating function that is set count here in this case. Now let's use it, move on further. So we should design the template. Now return, in the return you will have to write all the HTML part that you need to be, that you want to see in the UI. And now let's wrap it into a div. Let me add a class here just to give the CSS further. Class name here in React, we actually use in HTML what that is, we use a property called class, but just to distinguish, in React it is named as class name, so don't get confused. Class and class name is same. So just I am adding a class name here, count wrapper. We will add CSS later. Now let's add a heading, counter app. Do you guys have any question you can ask? Now let me create a button for which we will be using to increment the counter. Let me put a minus sign here, and then just a button again. We will be using a span tag to show the count span, and we will just simply put, see what we were talking about, the power of JavaScript. Now you can use the curly braces and simply write count here. Here you are not using, here you are using what? HTML plus JavaScript. As you know, a span is a HTML tag, and here we are using that count variable, just using the curly braces. So whenever you want to add HTML and JavaScript with one go, you can simply use the curly braces to add it. Now let me add another button. This button will be for incrementing the counter. Now we can do one thing. We can, let me add a class name here also, that will help me to add CSS later. Class name, oh sorry, class name count. Count. Now for incrementing the counter or for decrementing the counter, what we need to do is we need to handle an event. That is, we will need to handle a click event on the button, that when the minus button is clicked, the counter goes on decrement, and when the plus button is clicked, the counter goes on increment. So for handling an event, we will write here on click, that will be in the like this, on click, and we will simply give a function name to it. Just type the function name that you will be giving here. So it will decrease the counter, so I'm naming it as decrease. Now just do the same thing here also in the increased thing. Just add this. Now we will have to make these two functions as increment or decrement. Okay, so we will whatever function we will be going to write for handling the events, we will have to write here after the declaration or above the return statement. So let's create a function here, function increase. Let me change the name here. So we will be creating a function here, increase. And we will do nothing, just we will call the state updating function set count, and I will tell set count to just make the count value to +1 whenever this button is clicked and the event is fired. Now we'll be making another function. Let me just copy paste it to save the time. I'll just name it decrease, and just tell the state updating function to decrease the value. Okay, till then, do you have any questions? Am I audible?
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay,
No,
okay.
Vishnu.
Okay, now in the span tag, we are showing what count. Now let me add this as editable. So we will be adding one more function to it. So just put it here, content editable is equals to true. That it will allow to edit this. Okay. Now we will have to call a function as soon as it's lost its focus. So we will be calling an event called on blur, and we will give a function on blur. So on count, anyone is editing the count, on count edit. Now I think I have used double curly braces. Let me just remove. Okay, so now we will be making that function here only on count edit. What this function will be do, you will be knowing in just a second. On count edit. So we are just taking a variable count content, that whatever the user will be inputting, we will just taking it in a variable, and we will just call it. We will just add it as a number so that we can check whether it is a number or not. And we will be calling event dot. I think we haven't passed the event anywhere, na?
Yes.
Yes. I've just forgotten to add event here as a parameter, because we cannot use it like without adding that as parameter. Now we can call the event dot target dot and the text content, whatever will content that will be pasted there, text content. Okay, now I'm adding a if else condition. What if somebody, instead of adding a number, somebody adds any letter? So I will be adding a constraint here, that if number dot. Can anyone tell me that what is Ijnan here? Any one of you?
Is not a number.
Yes, it's not a number. We are checking that if number is not a number, then what we will be doing in that case, we will simply set the count. We call a set count. We will call the set count function and add math.floor, and then we will just add a random number there. Somebody enters any characters instead of a number, and we'll multiply it by 10 just to make it as a round figure. And else, if it is a number, then simply just make the set count to the count content, whatever content that will be entered. So we have created a function here. Now the can anyone tell me what is the main thing I'm forgetting here?
Export the component, count the component.
Yes, right. So we haven't exported this component yet. So we will be export default. You can also name export that component, but you can simply write export default and then the component name. And now you can use this component anywhere you want. So we will be calling this component here in the app component. Let's just remove this hello. And for calling that component, just write it like as a tag counter, and it will automatically get imported. Now make it self-closing. If you are not passing any props here, just save it, this file, and then this file. Now see what's the impact. Here you can see a counter app is made. Now if you click minus, it is decrementing, and now if you click plus, it is incrementing. Now what if you are doing like this? I am adding here like R, so it automatically takes 3. That is just because of this function that we have added here. Now for that, if you want to style your component, let's style the component by adding a new file, counter.css, and I have the CSS already, so let's just paste it. and do not forget to import the CSS file. So just because it is in the same folder, write import and then as a string dot slash and just write the file name counter.css and save it. Just save all the files and you can see the counter app now. It is decrementing, it is incrementing, and if you add here, if you want to start the counter with 52, you can add 52 and it will start the counting from 52. And if you are not entering any value like a number, you can use u whatever and it will take a random number and start the counter from there. Now we have seen, do you guys have any question till now? That how the things are working? Any question? Hello, am I audible?
Yes. I think they don't have any question.
Sir, can we keep
No
the
question.
same name of function and component?
Can we give the same name of function and component? Yes, I have
Yes.
given the same name only. Na?
Yeah.
Here counter is my component and function is also my, so that's not a problem. Even you can change this name because the file name doesn't matter. Okay, so now let's see how we pass props. Like I want to get some value from this app.js component, that is the parent component, to this child component. So let's see how we can do that. So let's just make a variable here like const. Let me take the variable name as my variable. I know that this is not a good naming convention, but still. So just write here, hello Saurabh. We are just writing my name. Let's see what we can do. Now I want to pass this data. I want to pass this data as a prop to the component, to this counter component. So how we can do that? Just simply use this. Here you can write anything whatever you want, like I am writing name, and then in the curly braces just write the name of your variable or the data that you want to pass. Okay, now I have to grab this value in this component. So I am using here, have you noticed that I am using here props? This props makes us available this value. Whatever value we will be passing into this component, that will be available by this keyword named props. It is accepting it as an argument. Now I have to use here, like I'm using a h2 tag and I'm saying hello, and in this bracket I want my name. So what I will do, I will first write props, and then what parameter I have passed here, it is name. So I will call it as dot name. Okay, and let's see if this works or not. See, hello Saurabh. So this is how we communicate between two components. I have written my data here. I have my data in my parent component. I am sending it through props, and then I am receiving it in the child component and displaying that data here. So this way you can also communicate through your parent to child component. And if you want to communicate through child to parent component, then you just have to pass function as an argument to the parent component, and that parent component will then use that function. So this is the case. I hope you all understand whatever I said.
Yes, sir.
Do you
Yes.
guys have any kind of questions, confusion, you can ask?
No, sir.
No questions?
No.
Okay.
You have cleared everything very well.
Thank you so much.
Saurabh, everything was clear.
Okay, so should I stop sharing?
Yes.
That's great to know, Saurabh, that you have explained them so carefully that they don't have any question till now.
Even I am amazed.
Indeed, you should be. Okay, so I think we are finished well in time. People, if do you have again, I would say if you still have any question, you can ask here, and let us know about the feedback of this session. Or you must have got the feedback form in your inboxes.
If
Yes.
you guys have any question further on, you can also ping us anytime.
And you have this references. You can go through this links for more learning about the React components.
That's amazing, Abhishek. This is wonderful that you have put references.
Mm.
So what you can do, do one thing. Can you paste these in the chat box so that people can, open it and make it bookmark?
Yeah, sure.
Because from here they need to type everything. But if you'll, yes.
I did it, Abhishek.
Okay.
Thanks, Saurabh.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Okay, guys, so you can visit these links if you want to know more about React and just start learning React. It is actually a very good framework. You will learn a lot of things, and when you will develop something in React, the kind of UI you will be getting is you will be totally amazed by seeing that. I have worked on React, and I can say that React is the best framework I have ever used yet. So you guys can carry on with React.
Thank you, Saurabh and Abhishek, for this amazing session. I am sure people have must learn something new today.
And
Thank
thank
you
you, good.
everyone for
Thank you.
joining in.
Thank
Let's jump into the another session at 4:15. See you all there. Thank you.
Okay,
you. Okay.
thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.